Hey, it's Laura with TRUEWELL. When it comes to carbohydrates for an anti-inflammatory diet, confusion abounds. So I'm here to answer the question, what is a resistant starch? Is it anti-inflammatory? And is resistant starch even good for me? So I think this is a really important topic to cover in this dietary style within anti-inflammatory, because there's a lot of confusion over whole grains and carbs in general when it comes to reducing inflammation in the body. Now, a lot of this is because of the constant battle regarding carbs in the last 2 decades. People have a hard time distinguishing between sugars and complex carbohydrates and really what they should or shouldn't be eating. And this becomes especially complicated when you're trying to manage a condition that relies on, an anti-inflammatory diet as a basis for controlling the symptoms and pain of that condition. So let's start out with answering what a resistant starch is in the first place. Okay, so when we're talking about the difference between a starch and a resistant starch, we have to kind of go back just a little bit, because the 3 forms of carbohydrates that we consume are going to be either sugar, starches, or resistant starch. So sugar's pretty obvious. Besides, the limitless disguises that it's given on food labels, we pretty much know what sugar is. But let's take a look at the difference really between a starch and a resistant starch. So just to get technical for a second here, starches are actually long chains of sugar molecules, and they come from plant foods that we consider refined carbohydrates that are not just straight sugar. So those would be things like refined flours that are used to make like bread, crackers, pasta, bakery items, things like that. And even though these foods aren't straight sugar, they've been broken down and have so much starch degradation that they are absorbed extremely fast into the bloodstream to have the same effect of straight sugar on your blood sugar levels. The foods that contain these non-resistant starches usually contain no fiber at all and are frequently paired with sugar and unhealthy fats to create kind of this trifecta of inflammatory triggers in the body. Most starchy foods in this category are ones that should be avoided for a variety of negative effects on human health. And alongside sugar, they've been shown to induce insulin resistance, inflammatory conditions, and contribute to heart disease. Now, resistant starches, on the other hand, are still considered a starch and a carbohydrate, but they're a slowly digested starch that also acts as a prebiotic. So instead of breaking down into sugar for energy, they resist digestion and then pass through the small intestine and into the large intestine. Now, once they're in the large intestine, bacterial fermentation occurs and assists the colon in producing short-chain fatty acids, including one called butyrate. Short-chain fatty acids matter because they help blood flow and absorption of minerals while blocking the growth of harmful bacteria and toxins. And butyrate suppresses colonic inflammation. Now, this little nifty job is what helps generate a posh home for our good gut bacteria, which is why we should promote an increase in resistant starch while eliminating regular starch and sugars. Various varieties of resistant starches found within many foods, and the addition of these into our diet is really beneficial to digestive health. Resistant starches also contain less calories than normal starchy food. So we extract approximately 2 calories per gram of resistant starch, while regular starch is absorbed at approximately 4 calories per gram. That's double. This means that the higher resistant starch is in food, the less calories it contains. This helps tremendously if trying to lose weight or maintain it, but have problems with appetite and feeling full. These types of resistant starch do, however, still contain vitamins and minerals that are available for absorption. So just a little side note here, that this is not permission to go crazy with pasta. It's still a good idea to reduce your calories from these types of foods and then increase your vegetable intake, especially when your goal is weight loss or increasing your insulin resistance. So now the question, is resistant starch good for you? Aside from what we've kind of already covered, the resistant starch is also known as soluble starch and is considered an insoluble dietary fiber. These varieties of resistant starch offer many health benefits and have lower calories than non-resistant starch. Several human studies show resistant starch can actually improve insulin sensitivity and blood pressure. It can decrease hunger, and it can help support a healthy digestive system, which has many health benefits in and of itself, including improved gut health, preventing colorectal cancer and colon cancer, lower risk of depression and anxiety, assistance in weight loss or maintenance, appetite reduction, which also helps with weight loss and maintenance, lowered blood sugar levels, improved insulin sensitivity, and then prevention or treatment of inflammatory bowel diseases. All of these factors add up to anti-inflammatory effects in the body. So let's go one step further and answer the question, is resistant starch good for diabetics? So although with type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, PCOS, and any other condition that relates to poor insulin sensitivity, we're generally told to shift into a low carb or even ketogenic diet, which severely limits all starch, including resistant starch. What studies have shown is the numerous health benefits of resistant starch intake for these conditions by following an anti-inflammatory diet in the form of the Mediterranean diet. Since resistant starch, especially when fibers paired with it, helps blunt a blood sugar spike, it improves gut health, and it triggers those short-chain fatty acids, it can be especially helpful at improving overall health, including increasing insulin sensitivity. Now, the second part of that is since many people with metabolic issues like type 2 diabetes are also overweight, including more resistant starch in their diet will also help with feeling full and more satisfied to assist in the weight loss, which is what many doctors recommend to those who are diagnosed with these conditions. So let's talk about the different types of resistant starch. There are actually 5 types of resistant starch. There's a 5th category that was added to include those produced by food manufacturers. So they're just named type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, and type 5. So let's just talk about where you can find each one and really what their pros and cons are of each of those different types. So resistant starch type 1 refers to starchy food that has a seed or a germ as its outer coating. Now, these can be found in grains, seeds, and legumes. Type 1 resistant starch is unable to be broken down by our digestive systems. Now, this means our digestive system does not absorb its nutrients due to them being attached to fibrous tissue walls, as long as it's intact or just cracked. And what this means is that it can't be ground down into flour. It's got to be the whole grain or just cracked. Resistant starch type 2 is naturally found within the starches of certain foods. The more raw these foods are and uncooked, the more resistant the starches are. So once they're heated, the starch is more easily digested. These include raw fruits, potato starch from raw potatoes, corn, some legumes, high maize resistant starch products, so think like corns, green unripe bananas, and plantains. Now, type 3 resistant starch is referred to as retrograded starch. This is starchy food that is cooked and then cooled. Now, this heat and cooling application actually increases the resistant starch content. These would include foods like sushi rice and pasta or potatoes that are cooked and then cooled for a salad, for example. Resistant starch type 4 is chemically modified starch created by food manufacturers from starchy foods. The end products are resistant to digestion, but start out as rice, raw potatoes, or corn. And these are really created so that food companies can increase thickness or improve texture by adding a resistant starch. And then our new category, resistant starch type 5. So this is a new category. It was recently added. This is another type of resistant starch that manufacturers also produce, but they heat and cool the starchy foods with fatty acids, waxes, or other lipids. And of course, we all want to know, what's the best source of resistant starch? So, although types 2 and 4 have been shown to increase levels of good bacteria in the gut, the types of bacteria are different. This, along with the fact that each person is so different, makes it difficult to determine which would be better from a gut health perspective. Aside from that, the most feasible options we have come from types 1 through 3. So, these include the resistant starches that we can cook whole, intact, or cracked grains like rice, farro, oats, amaranth, barley, quinoa, teff, and wheat berries. Then other foods that are not grains would be lentils, soybeans, and legumes. And then lastly, this would also include raw fruit, green bananas, and plantains. And then lastly, a lot of people want to know, how do you increase resistant starch in food? So a great way to increase resistant starches, if you're not able to find whole or cracked grains like the ones that we just talked about, you're going to have to make do with whole grain pastas or even potatoes in a recipe. And the key here is to plan ahead. Now, if you start out with whole grains or even lentil pasta, you can create dietary resistant starch in those foods if it's cooked and then cooled. What's really exciting about this is that further research done on resistant starch at the University of Surrey showed that blood sugar levels can be even further controlled when those foods are then reheated again. Their study showed that it reduced blood sugar spikes by a whopping 50% when food was then reheated again. This has also been confirmed with another study published by researchers in 2019 in the journal Foods. Now, I personally was diagnosed with prediabetes, even though I eat really pretty darn fantastic. I rarely eat sugar or bread, and I wanted to know what the heck was going on. So my doctor wrote me a prescription to have a sensor or continuous blood glucose monitor. And I wanted to know this kind of thing too about the resistant starches. What happens when you eat regular pasta, or what happens when you eat a certain type of oats? What happens when you move those around and put, fat and protein before those starches? So I've got a lot of videos that I'm working on that should be on the channel anytime soon. I'm going to make a playlist of them if you want to go through there and see what my experiment was and what I found when it came to the resistant starches as well, and what different things affect them. So check that out. Now, all in all, resistant starches and the fiber that's present in these types of foods have been shown to be immensely beneficial to gut health, prevention of certain diseases, blood sugar control, and assist in weight loss. Based on the data that we have, resistant starch's ability to do all these things has mega anti-inflammatory benefits. That being said, as long as there are no food allergies or sensitivities to any of these foods listed as resistant starches, or those where resistant starch could be made or increased, these are definitely foods that are recommended on the anti-inflammatory diet. Now, if you're ready to get started on an anti-inflammatory diet, whether you're a complete beginner, whether you've already researched it and you're just looking for recipes to actually get going on it, I've got 2 different resources that I think you're really going to love. One of them is a quick start guide that goes through what really the guidelines are for the anti-inflammatory diet, and it does have a 3-day meal plan in it. And the other is an actual 1-week meal plan. So check out the links below this video. Please give me a like if you are, really excited to get started on this, if the resistant starch thing is surprising to you like it was to me. And I will see you in the next video.